Breaking news from Eastern Europe. As Belarus explodes into chaos and the nation stands on the brink of total collapse, reports confirm that parts of the Belarusian army have turned against President Alexander Lukashenko. After decades of absolute control, his regime is now facing open rebellion. Multiple explosions have been reported near the capital Minsk, with smoke rising above military bases and gunfire echoing through the streets. Civilians are running for safety, while armored vehicles burn and soldiers clash in the heart of the city. Local sources say several military commanders have refused to follow orders, instead joining the uprising and calling for Lukashenko to step down. The government is losing control. Fast internet connections have been cut. Television stations are silent, and panic is spreading as reports emerge that Lukashenko may have fled to a secure bunker. Eyewitnesses claim helicopters have been seen leaving the presidential area, possibly evacuating officials. As protests grow nationwide, rebel forces are advancing toward the capital, carrying the red and white flag of the Belarusian opposition. Videos show civilians cheering as soldiers declare their loyalty to the people and not the dictator. Neighboring countries, including Poland and Lithuania, have gone on high alert, while NATO drones monitor the situation from above. The European Union has called for an emergency meeting as fears rise that Belarus could descend into full-scale civil war. The United States has urged calm, but Western analysts believe the collapse of Lukashenko's rule may now be inevitable. Unconfirmed reports suggest Russian military advisors have begun withdrawing from Minsk, signaling that even Moscow might be distancing itself from its longtime ally. Explosions continue through the night across several military installations, with communication towers destroyed and fuel depots set ablaze. Power outages have hit major cities as the chaos spreads. The once tightly controlled nation is breaking apart in real time. Analysts say this may mark the end of Europe's last dictatorship, as the Belarusian army fractures and the people rise in defiance against decades of repression. Scenes of jubilation and fear mix together as thousands flood the streets demanding freedom. The air is filled with smoke, chants, and uncertainty. The world watches as a new chapter begins in Belarus history, a chapter written in fire, defiance, and the collapse of tyranny. Stay tuned as we continue to monitor this fast-developing story where the fate of an entire nation now hangs in the balance. As chaos deepens across Belarus, reports now indicate that the rebellion inside the military is spreading faster than anyone expected. Several armored divisions once loyal to Lukashenko have declared neutrality, while others have openly joined the resistance. Sources inside the capital, Minsk, describe total disorder as communication networks remain down, and entire neighborhoods are cut off from electricity and water. The presidential guard is reportedly split, with some members abandoning their posts and others fortifying government buildings. Gunfire and explosions continue to echo through the night as rebel groups seize control of highways and transportation routes. The opposition has called this the moment of liberation, urging citizens to remain calm but to stand firm against dictatorship. Meanwhile, the streets of major cities like Grodno and Brest are filled with civilians carrying flags and chanting for freedom. Foreign embassies are evacuating their staff, while NATO reconnaissance aircraft circle the border collecting intelligence. The European Union has issued another urgent call for dialogue, but on the ground there is no sign of negotiation. Only confrontation. Unconfirmed images show Belarusian tanks positioned at key intersections, while smoke rises from burning vehicles near the defense ministry. Analysts warn that the situation is rapidly moving towards civil war. Russian media has gone silent on the issue, sparking speculation that the Kremlin may be preparing a new strategy. Lukashenko has not appeared publicly for more than 36 hours, and his current location remains unknown. Opposition leaders claim he has fled Minsk, while government spokesmen insist he is still in control. But with each passing hour, that statement grows harder to believe. Thousands of soldiers are believed to have defected, carrying weapons and supplies to join rebel units in rural areas as the fighting intensifies. Entire towns are declaring independence from the central government. In some regions, local police forces have even sided with the rebellion, promising to protect civilians instead of enforcing martial law. Fires continue to rage at oil depots and ammunition storage sites with black smoke visible from miles away, emergency services are overwhelmed, as hospitals fill with injured civilians and soldiers alike. Power failures have plunged parts of the country into total darkness, while internet blackouts have isolated millions from the outside world. International reactions continue to pour in, with leaders from across Europe calling for sanctions and humanitarian aid. The United Nations has scheduled an emergency session to address what could become the largest internal conflict in Eastern Europe in decades. Many fear that if Lukashenko falls completely, Belarus could face weeks of anarchy or even partition as rival factions compete for control across the collapsing state. As dawn approaches, the sound of explosions mixes with the echo of defiance. Belarus stands on the edge of transformation, its people caught between fear and hope. The era of Lukashenko may finally be ending, and the struggle for a new Belarus has begun. Is a developing story, and the world is watching closely as history unfolds in real time across the streets of Minsk. As the rebellion reaches its breaking point across Belarus, the situation has entered a new and even more dangerous phase. Rebel commanders now claim they control more than 60% of the country, including several key military airfields and government facilities. Reports from Minsk suggest the presidential palace has been surrounded by mutinous troops, while Lukashenko's loyal guards are making a desperate last stand. Sources on the ground describe the city as a war zone, with streets covered in debris, buildings damaged by artillery, and civilians fleeing in panic. The national television headquarters has fallen into rebel hands, and broadcasts are now being made under the banner of the Free Belarus movement. In these transmissions, opposition leaders announced the creation of a temporary council to restore democracy and order across the country. Meanwhile, the fate of Alexander Lukashenko remains uncertain. Conflicting reports claim he has either escaped to Russia or been captured by his own military officials. Neither version has been confirmed, but what is clear is that his decades-long grip on power has finally shattered. Russian state media has gone silent, avoiding mention of the crisis, while intelligence sources indicate that Moscow is holding emergency meetings to determine whether to intervene or recognize a new government. Western nations have declared their support for a democratic transition in Belarus, offering aid and humanitarian assistance as images of burning tanks and fleeing officials flood social media. Global attention is now fixed on Minsk, where rebel flags fly over several government ministries. Analysts warn that this is one of the fastest regime collapses in modern European history. Within just a few days, a dictatorship that once seemed unshakable has crumbled under the weight of its own people. The mood across the country is both chaotic and hopeful, as thousands celebrate in the streets chanting freedom, while others brace for possible retaliation by remaining loyalist forces. Explosions continue to light the night sky as sporadic clashes are reported near the border regions, but the overall tide appears irreversible. Belarus is changing forever, and the balance of power in Eastern Europe will never be the same again. The fall of Lukashenko marks not only the end of an era, but the beginning of a new uncertain future, one filled with both opportunity and danger for the Belarusian people. The world watches as a nation long silenced by fear finally rises to speak with one voice. This is the moment when dictatorship meets its end, and a new dawn begins to break over a country reborn from the ashes of its own resistance. Stay tuned for further updates as the story of Belarus continues to unfold. Before our eyes, history is being written right now.